Today I want to again share a little bit like a Dhamma reflection. So I'm starting with a little story. When I was a kid, maybe 12 years, 13 years old, went to school like every other child as well. One of my classmates told me a little trick, or what you would call these days a hack. Some things to influence an outcome, to make it better or different. And what he said is the following. If you press your tongue to the roof of your head, like especially the middle part, that's important, and you take your finger and press it in here, if you feel that you have to sneeze, like achoo, it's gone. So you press your tongue on the roof of your head, put your finger in, the moment you feel that you have to sneeze, and this feeling of sneezing goes away. And he said his father told him this, but it's actually like a hunter's trick. When you're sitting there as a hunter in the morning, early in the morning on your high seat, and you're seeing like an animal, and you wait for the right moment. Sometimes you will sit for an hour. It would be, at least for the hunter, maybe it would be good for the deer or for the wild boar, but for the hunter it would be like a miss if he would suddenly, after an hour watching this animal, have to sneeze. And then the animal, of course, being very aware of its surroundings, just runs away. Of course, at that time, at that stage in your life, half the things that you're telling your classmates are either pranks or something that you just make up in the moment to just the person up. So I was very skeptical about this. Yeah, of course, he referred back to his father, but even that is something that he can just make up. Yeah, it's not that I would go to his father and would ask the father, "Is this true?" But then, of course, as a young kid, you're bored, sitting in math class, not interested at all. So I thought, okay, let's try that. Yeah, let's see what's in this. So, of course, but you cannot conjure up like a sneezing just out of thin air. Yeah, this is something that happens to you. Yeah. But then at some stages you feel, oh, I have to sneeze, and then you can, okay, what do I have to do? And then poof, it comes out. Yeah, you cannot stop it. But then you think, okay, but then you try again, and it's never really working. Yeah. But then, because what happens usually is that you are too late. The train is rolling already, it's going down the tracks, you cannot stop it anymore. But then one time, I was early enough, I felt I have to sneeze, I did the right combination, gone. Amazing. This works, this really works, yeah? So this kind of thing that I had to believe became suddenly something that I knew, at least it would work some of the time. Maybe it was a fluke, but at least this one time it seemed that it worked. So then, over the next, let's say, week or so, tried it again, missed it again. But then, more and more often, what happened then is actually that the mind says, well, it might work. It seems that it works, but why should I learn this? It's not something that is really necessary. If I have to sneeze, I sneeze. It might even be healthy to sneeze. But still, I thought, okay, what else to do in class when it's not so interesting? Just try it. So, and of course, over the next week or so, I got a lot of snot on my hand because I didn't catch it in time. But then I got better and better at it. And not just that I was better at pressing my tongue up and my finger in, but I became also earlier and earlier aware of the sensation of sneezing. That's an important part, to become aware of this. As soon as you feel the first little, okay, now it might happen. And then I became really proficient at it. Yeah? And then suddenly it was a tool in my toolkit that I could use. Okay, so first thing you might ask, why should you need that? We are not hunters anymore. Why should we need that? What I found is that, especially like in the context of a meditation retreat, it can be a real act of kindness to your fellow meditators, to when you're sitting in silent meditation in a room, to not sneeze. I'm not saying that sneezing is wrong. I just thought, okay, now that I can do this, I have kind of created a space of freedom, of being in control of something. Yeah? And that is a feeling of real empowerment. So when I'm in my kuti, I'm doing something, cleaning or so, and the dust comes into my eyes and I feel I want to sneeze, I can sneeze. But in a different context, when I think, okay, now it would actually be not an ideal time for my fellow beings, I can act upon the feeling of sneezing and I can just suppress it. So, okay, how do we pull a Dhammic point out of this? What I want to say is that in the Dhamma we have to find skillful means to work with the hindrances. Mainly with greed, hatred and delusion. And let's say if there's a feeling of annoyance coming up, it's not enough to just say, okay, now is the time to practice, like for example, metta meditation, loving kindness meditation, because that's the time when the train is already rolling. A negative feeling comes up, you are acting upon it, yeah, either outwardly or inwardly. So it is really important that we practice, that we hone our tools before we come into a situation where we actually need them. Okay, another story to just make the point. Now I'm a bit older, I'm already like in a monastic context, living in Wat Pananachat in Thailand. Maybe, let's say it was 7-8 years ago. We would, during the period of the Vasa, during the period of the rains retreat, on the full moon day, on the half moon day, and the new moon day, we would usually stay up the whole night and practice the whole night. This is not an easy practice for everyone, but our teachers say it's a good way of coming into a different mindset, practicing patience, khanti. Then, especially in the morning, it is really interesting how our perception of the world can change due to lack of sleep. Some people become annoyed, some people become sleepy, many people become sleepy. Some people become a little less sense-restrained, indulge, for example, in a meal. And for myself, for some reason, I have the real urge to make little jokes. Doesn't sound too bad at the moment, but can get you into real difficult waters, especially if the people you're living with are having their own difficult situation to battle with, because it's not me the only one that has stayed up the whole night, but they as well. So, and the Ajahn says, don't just fast on that day so that in the morning after morning chanting you can quickly go to your kuti and start sleeping. Just do the regular morning, yeah, go on alms round, have the meal offering, have your meal, the blessing chant, have your meal, and then wash your bowl and whatever, and then do your chores ideally. And then is the time, maybe 10:30, to go back to your kuti and have a little rest. So what happens is that this Vanpra, or what we call Vanpra, is actually like the holy day. The next day it was probably a Sunday. So stayed up the whole night, went in the morning an alms round, had the meal. And then I came with my bowl to this place called the bowl washing area, where all the monks come afterwards and wash their own bowls. And you're usually standing across from each other. Yeah? So there's one bucket here, the other bucket from the other side. And there was a monk standing there washing his bowl, Ajahn Visalo, and he put quite a lot of detergent, yeah, something we should all be frugal with, into his bowl. So it became this really foamy thing. And I said to him, because I had this urge, so are you having a foam bath? And he said to me, kind of somewhat annoyed, maybe there's a reason. And I thought, it looks like I overstepped my line here. And then, of course, I finished up my bowl and packed it up, did my chores, went to my kuti, had a sleep. And then in the afternoon, we all come out because we have tea time together. And then he came to me and he said, usually I'm very frugal with the detergent. But because I had some cream cake in my bowl, and we're only using cold water, we don't have hot water there, we use cold water to wash the bowl, so I needed a little bit more detergent to get the grease of that cake out of my bowl. And I thought, oh, wow, there's a whole world, that he experienced in that moment that I had no insight to. I just saw objectively, or from my subjectivity, that he had this foam ball there, washing there. So, and I just made this joke. I just reacted to outward phenomenon, to the phenomenon of the world. And some of you might know that this kind of saying, maybe there's a reason, comes from one of our main teachers, Luang Por Sumedho. In this bowl drying shed, there's actually like a wooden, kind of rough wooden board hanging on the wall, and someone has routed into that board the exact same sentence, maybe there is a reason. And I walked by that sign thousands of times. I've read it as well, but it didn't make an impact at the time. But suddenly I had this situation that was very relevant to me, very subjectively relevant to me. This situation that I made another monk feel bad because I didn't have all the information. And then coupled with that saying, maybe there's a reason, I had suddenly some tool. Of course, it needed to be developed. It's not the last time that I made a joke that overstepped the line a bit. But of course, the sentence can be used in many different contexts. In all the contexts that we feel, why does he do it like that? Why doesn't he do it like that? That one can use that sentence to see, I'm looking out of my own eyes, in my subject reality. This doesn't make sense. But he is looking out of his eyes. And if it would not make sense to him, he would do it differently. And that was somehow a real insight at that moment. And then I developed this further. And now, not always, but many times, whenever there's a situation where I start feeling annoyed because of something out there, this sign comes up, just like a stop sign in traffic. When you come to a traffic crossing, you see the stop sign and you know, I'm not questioning it. This is the time when I have to stop and then look out. Is there a car? Is there no car? Even if there is no car, the traffic sign is there to stop you, at least for this moment, to keep you safe. So whenever, especially feelings of annoyance, of displeasure come up, before the train starts rolling, you feel this little aversion. This is just normal. This is part of the chain of events when we meet with external phenomenon. But where we can cut it off is between feeling of dislike, like, neutral feeling, and clinging, or actually craving, tanha. So the sooner we catch this, and the sooner we rein this feeling in, the earlier we can cut it off. And that's why it is useful to find skillful means, find tools that work for you, and then hone them, so that when the time comes and you need them, they're right there for you to use. And that's what I want to share today.